Hi, this is Peter Woolfolk. First, thank you so very much for being a listener to the Public Relations Review podcast. I would really appreciate your leaving a review of the podcast. Let me know what you think. To make it easy, you can go directly to the podcast website, and that is publicrelationsreviewpodcast.com. There, you can go directly to the review page to leave your review. So let me know what you think of the podcast. And again, thank you so very, very much for being a listener.
Welcome to the multiple award-winning Public Relations Review podcast, ranked by Apple among the top 1% of podcasts worldwide. Each episode features distinguished American and international guests who explore a wide range of public relations topics, including AI, digital trends, crisis communications, storytelling, media relations, and more. Our conversations bring together seasoned professionals, business leaders, authors, academics, and government officials and others to share their insights and expertise. Now, here is your host and producer, Peter Woolfolk.
Now, question to the audience. How effective are senior officials in your public relations company? Do the officers and managers in your PR company demonstrate effective leadership? If not, then we have a guest today that can help resolve that problem. He provides customized coaching, consulting, and training programs to help PR executives strengthen teams, lead with confidence, and achieve measurable results. So joining me today from Asbury Park, New Jersey is Ken Jacobs, a certified executive coach, consultant, and speaker with deep experience helping public relations and communications leaders strengthen their leadership effectiveness. So, Ken, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, and thank you for that introduction. I may need to hire you as my publicist. That just sounded great. Like, who is he talking about? Oh, wow, that's me. Uh-oh, I better be good.
Okay. So, this is my first time having covered leadership issues from the PR perspective. My first question then is, how does one recognize an ineffective leader? And then, what steps do you take to manage or your officer to improve their leadership skills?
So an ineffective leader. So what I'd like to do is do a little spin on. I'm very much a believer in positivity and optimism, and anything I hear something that might be something we don't want to do, I think about, well, what do we want to do, right? So if it, here's what I think makes an effective leader, and an ineffective is the opposite. When they turn around, do they see followers, regardless of their title, where they are on the org chart? Do they see people who understand their vision, understand their role in it, and follow them? So if that's what the person has, then they are an effective leader. If they turn around, and again, doesn't matter what's on the org chart or, whose timesheets you sign, but if you turn around and you're honest with yourself and you don't see pumped up followers who will follow you into anything. And boy, these are scary times today. We need people who will follow us. So if you don't have followers, regardless of title and org chart, then you're not a leader. That's something to work on. If you see anyone who, I'm going to go back to your question. It's your podcast. I should answer it your way. But if you see people who just are only focused on the business of PR, the communications, the business of, they may be great PR practitioners, but if they're not spending time thinking about leadership, thinking about, anyone who reports to them, what do they need from me as a leader, right? Mm-hmm. Do you think your success is only PR success or only your career success? Then you're not a leader. Because a true leader understands their role is to help others achieve their greatest success that they maybe never thought they were capable of. And I may be reiterating a point. You can see people in your organization doing that even before they're the EVP, SVP, managing director, whatever the title. So, people have this ability to lead. There are a lot of definitions of leadership, right? One of my favorites is if you use your mindset and your energy to achieve the goals of, and it's a long list, the goals of the organization, its clients if it has them, its stakeholders, its team, your peers if you have peers, your boss if you have a boss, and yourself, then you're truly a leader. So those old enough to remember Ed Koch, the mayor of New York, used to say, "How am I doing?" So, it's not am I leading or not? How are you leading? Because your energy, your mindset, your vision, all of that, you're leading. So you're leading from the get-go. And now the question is, and are you honest enough to get answers to how am I doing? Because truly effective leaders want that feedback. They want to know, both in their communications and especially their actions, if what they're doing is working for their followers. So getting, being honest with oneself, getting feedback on one's leadership is another critical part, I think, of the definition. Effective leaders seek out performance feedback on their leadership.
That begins to raise the question that I have, because someone are in those positions, leadership positions, they might not know that they need to get responses from their audience or their staff or their team to find out how am I doing, how am I coming across. The information that I'm getting from you is good, but now I need to interact with you, but I don't get a feeling that you want to allow me to do that. So how do, fact that they might have information to give, how are they make themselves open to those who are receiving it?
Yeah, there are all kinds of ways to get the feedback, and I think part of it depends on the size of the organization. But, there's so much you can get through. Well, if you have an HR department, you can run a confidential survey through them. You can use SurveyMonkey. I would layer on, and I would make getting feedback part of your performance review, right? Everybody gets reviewed. Everybody gets evaluated, right? So you have to seek it out, and then critical. When you hear things you don't want to hear, and you will, I promise you, mark down this date that I told you this, you will get some feedback that some of your leadership actions and words are not landing. And treat it as a gift, right? Don't rationalize it. Don't say, oh, they don't get me. Oh, they just really don't like me. Oh, they don't know what leadership is. People know how they want to be led. People know what inspires them and how to create self-motivation. So it's seeking out the feedback, either survey, HR, or, think about the one-on-ones. Now, many people that we need their feedback won't share it in a one-on-one. It can be very challenging to look across the desk at your boss, and your boss says, "So what could I be doing better?" That takes a lot of courage, and not every team member, wants to give direct face-to-face feedback with the person in charge of their promotions and salary increases and bonuses. We may not do that. That's why I like the blend of truly anonymous feedback. The other thing I ask you to seek out in almost every organization, I believe, you will find someone who is willing to speak their truth to you about you. And they may be sort of low on the organizational chart. I was very lucky in just every place in my career. I had at least one person, sometimes two, who would be willing to tell the truth to me. And they were smart about how they did it. But boy, so I'll just share a funny anecdote. My nickname back when I was in the agency business, long time ago, and for a long time, my nickname was Uncle Ken. And that was kind of endearing and sweet. It could be a double-edged sword, but that's another question. But when I wasn't bringing my best, right? When I wasn't bringing the right kind of energy, when I was being defensive or showing fear, I had one team member her nickname for me when I was not in a good place was Evil Ben. So there was Uncle Ken and Evil Ben. And she would, when the time was appropriate, pick up the phone and she'd say very humorously, "We have a visitor in the office today. It's Evil Ben. I thought you should know." And that was what courage and what kindness, right? To give me the feedback that I didn't see and that I had to do something to get back into Uncle Ken mode, you know? And that was part of the issue. And this is feedback I got. People didn't know when they would come to me, especially with bad news or surprises, would they get Uncle Ken or would they get Evil Ben? So what's the impact? If you're bringing your version of Evil Ben, people stop sharing bad news. They stop sharing surprises.
Mm-hmm.
They stop looping you in when they really might need your expertise as a senior PR leader. So establishing that, finding at least one person who'll speak the truth, and hopefully more. That certainly helped me a lot.
Well, I was about to say that. I mean, that opens a critical question like that. Should not that person who wants to be a leader indicate that, yes, you are open to receiving input on my presentation? What am I missing? What does my audience and my team need to hear from me, and how often? Rather than somebody taking the chance of going up and say, "Well, I'm going to do it," because what you, in essence, said in some cases, they'll give you the information that they want to give you, but they don't indicate to you that the door is open for you to come to them. So how do you reverse or set that situation up so that they can feel comfortable coming to you saying, "Hey, look, what you said the other day, I think there are some mistakes in there, or, we read it a different way," and so forth and so on. So how does that happen? How can they make that happen?
It's two parts, really. One is by saying, "This is the kind of feedback I want," or seeking them out and saying, "What are 3 things I'm doing right I should keep doing and do more of as a leader," not as a PR pro, as a leader. What are 3 things I'm doing that isn't working for you and others, and I should modify, edit, or stop? What impact are those behaviors having on you? So simple. So you start with that. You might have open office hours where they know you're available, but here's the important thing. How you respond to that feedback tells them everything. Mm-hmm. So if you respond by closing it down, disagreeing, like when you ask for feedback and you get it, do not say a word other than thank you. Right. Thank you for your courage. Thank you for your honesty. That might have been hard for you. Because if you ask for this feedback and then you respond defensively or negatively, it brings up, there's a great quote from the author, philosopher, both, Ralph Waldo Emerson. "What you do speaks so loudly, I cannot hear what you say." Mm-hmm. What you do speaks so loudly, I cannot hear what you say. So if you're all about the talk of give me feedback, open office, blah, 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 but you shut it down, you will never get it again. Mm-hmm. And the person who experiences that will tell other people, "Hey, I know Paul said to give him feedback and this and that, but you don't want to do it. It's going to be uncomfortable. You don't want to do it." So I think that's it is verbiage, but walking the walk, backing it up with action. Yeah. And you may not change. You may get a lot of feedback as a leader. You may not do everything they ask. That's okay. Just because you ask for feedback, doesn't mean I'm going to do everything my team tells me. But I will consider all of it. I will experiment with some of it. Some of it are changes I'm willing to make, and you make it, and you thank them. "Did you notice I'm doing this and this?" I'm not trying to get credit. I just want you to know I listened. Mm-hmm. And then, so much about leadership is courage, and the courage to say thank you for those 4 pieces of input. I'm acting on 3 of them. 1 I'm going to hold back on for now, but please keep coming to me because it helps. And sometimes I'm going to do it your way, and sometimes I won't, and that takes courage too.
Well, and I guess that does answer the question, because if in fact you do ask people for input and they give it to you, then you should, indicate, yes, I do like what you said about A, B, C, and D. It's the one or two others I've got some concerns about. I'm going to look into them.
Yeah.
If I think there's some way we can negotiate, let's sit down and talk about those.
Yeah, even to say, I want to sit with that for a while.
Right.
That's given me something to think about. I mean, that's a respectful answer. You've got to communicate respect. And I'm going to do this, don't do that, we'll do this. Don't have that in the moment, because that shows you haven't thought about it.
Right.
Say, I'm going to sit on it and you'll see me take some action, or I'm going to sit on it, then let's talk again. And especially if we hear something that makes us really uncomfortable, it might be the right thing to do. We've got to think about it and decide what we want to do. When we get that moment of defensiveness or discomfort or fear, don't say, don't think, don't act. Thank them, and then sit with it for a bit. Because if it's bothering you, there might be something you really want to change, and you may need some think time. As leaders, do we spend enough time thinking about leadership, thinking about the feedback we get? And I know in the PR business, in comms business, now more than ever, there's no time. But if you're a leader or want to be a leader, this is time you need to spend. You must spend time growing as a leader. Professional development, reading leadership books, leadership blogs, all of it. And you'll get it back. I'm here to say you will get return on that investment.
Because one of the other things I do think about is that, and I've seen this happen on some occasions, is that the senior officials maybe will ask for roundtable discussions with their subordinates. How can we come together and let's talk about this together and see what it is we can work out together that everybody agrees to. That way, now you're having some of your subordinates participate, which makes them much more active, and it gives you they have a much better perception of you if they can see that they're helping to come to some conclusion about this one particular issue.
Yeah. No, collaboration is great because your people, depending on their various levels, will have insights that you don't see, maybe, right? So they're doing the work, the PR, like they're going to be giving you, or they know how people are feeling morale-wise. Are people engaged or not engaged? So you want that collaboration. The caveat I'd offer is, you may not do everything they ask you to do. You've got to be good with it. And get the feedback, collaborate. But as leader, you've got to have the courage to decide. And that, again, at risk of repetition, of the 5 things you said, here's the 3 things we're going to implement. Here's how we're going to do it. These other 2 I'm going to think on, or I don't see it as the strategy. Leaders have to be comfortable saying, I appreciate your insights, but for now, here's the direction we're going, and this is why I need you in the boat with me, right? This is the role I see for you in this, and it's important. So it's not just I accept every idea, nor is it I hope not reject every idea, but being open. And sometimes it's okay to say, especially if you've got a leader in training, or you're number 1 and they're number 2 sort of thing. It can be very powerful to say, it's not how I would do it. Let's try it your way. And if we don't succeed, we'll figure it out. We're not going to fail. That is, boy, talk about a way to truly not just delegate, but empower your second in commands into leadership.
And, that brings up another thought, too, because a lot of times, sometimes they say, well, I hadn't thought about that. Why can't we sit down together and see what we can come up with? Or I'm not going to take this route because. So then people understand why you did not do something, and it makes sense to them, and, without any sort of offense to them. But once people understand why certain directions or actions weren't taken, it makes more sense to them. and they feel like they weren't, and that you did listen to them. That eases it as well.
Precisely. As a leader, you can ask for the feedback, you can ask for collaboration, but nowhere is it written that you're going to do everything that's asked, because also you have a perspective, just as, you're asking them for collaboration and insight because they have a perspective you don't have, but you have some perspective they don't have, right? As running the agency or the corporate communications department or the group, you have a perspective too, and you know what your leaders want, meaning the managers above you, whether it's the board or the stakeholders, the shareholders, like they may not know all the pressures on you. And so, you've got to be comfortable disagreeing, asking them to play a role, and explaining why. Because people, I think, don't demand or need the leader to do everything they've said, but I think it is respectful and builds loyalty to say, I'm not doing your way this time. Again, at risk of repetition, here's where we're going to go. Here's why I need you with me. Here's your role in it and why it's so important. And keep coming to me with ideas, because next time we might do it your way.
The other part of that, flipping that particular coin, is that, if you're the one that's building the car, actually, putting it together as compared to, all right, somebody giving you an assignment, all right, do it this way, that you can say, well, no, we can't do it this way because A, B, C, and D. We've done this, we've seen it fall apart.
Yeah.
Those kinds of things. Being able to give some rebuttal to their senior officials or their bosses or whatever, and give some solid rationale why this won't work. We've seen it happen before. I mean, look at some of that happens in the airline industry. The people upstairs say, hey, go do this and use this particular piece of equipment. And the folks who actually do the work say, oh, no, that's not going to work. We've seen it. It breaks down. It doesn't fit. Those kind of, it won't last long. And, it costs us money. But and if we do it, we're going to catch hell if we do it and it falls apart, as compared to us listening to us saying, here's why you shouldn't do it. So I think there should be some room for dialogue there as well.
Yeah. Can I give you recommend a slight variation?
Absolutely.
Okay. So when bosses say, I want this, and you believe passionately it's not the right way to go, and you tell them why their idea doesn't work, they can often become like toddlers. Unless they're really gifted leaders, they become toddlers, and they demand it more. So I would recommend, rather than saying no or why, what you're saying won't work, leaders, everyone are creatures of ego, and they're going to defend this, maybe risky idea. So what I recommend is saying, I've thought about your thing. May I suggest something different? And most of the time, your leader will say, of course, I want to hear your point of view, right? But asking permission literally opens up their brain.
Okay.
It gets them from defensive to open, and say, I would do A, B, C. It mitigates the following risks, and here are the benefits. So you can talk about it's safer, it's proven, it's tested, it's da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. You're making the case for your suggestion rather than knocking down their idea. Because people are creatures of ego, and they will defend thinking that doesn't make sense. You want to remove the defending and show them the better way and show them the benefits. And, for everything you were going to say about their other idea, instead of saying that's negative, you say, here are the risks it mitigates, right? So, risk mitigation, that phrase is something people understand. They get it. That's better than implying their idea won't work.
Well, again, I think the idea here is having open lines of communication. That is what's important between officials and their staff. The better you are with that, the better off you are, and the more people are willing to support you, and also to report things that are a problem.
Well, leadership and communications are different skills, but they do have some things in common, right? I think to be a good leader, you must have excellent communication skills. Two-way, right? Communicate decisively, explain respectfully, focus on the benefits. So that's why leaders must be great communicators. But I believe that, in the communications business, the PR business, we need to be better leaders, right?
Mm-hmm.
We need to be better leaders to be open, to have courage, to be able to speak with respect, whether we have internal or external clients. Everybody's got a client of some kind, right? So I think there are a lot of, if you do the Venn diagram, leadership skills and communication skills, while there are some differences, there's a lot in that sweet spot where the two circles overlap.
Mm-hmm.
Though I would say, if I look at the industries, leaders, I think, understand they've got to be great communicators. No disrespect to the field in which I grew up and in which just about all my clients make their living. They're almost all PR and comms people. I think the industry needs to keep doing a better job of developing your people, not just as superb PR practitioners or program managers, but as superb leaders. Remember, leadership is a two-part choice. Your conscious decision to go above management, above being a manager, above being a practitioner, above being skilled, but that's sort of the science and what I call the art of leading human beings, which is challenging and frustrating, but also can be very, very, very fulfilling. So I think our industry could, getting back to the two-part choice, it's your followers' decision to follow you or not, your team members' decision to follow you or not. You might have the fancy office. They may report to you. They may report to you on the org chart. They may need your approval of their work output. But that's different than following, right? Because they can come in, do the work, check the boxes, do the to-do list. There's something transactional about them.
Right.
But if you figure out as a leader to be the kind of leader that they choose to follow, that is transformative. And you can transform your organization. You can transform your people's careers. So I think stepping into leadership has enormous impact. And again, with all these frustrations, can be quite fulfilling.
One of the things I heard you when you're just saying stepping into it, being prepared to step into it. Just because you have been promoted doesn't mean that you're necessarily good at dealing with people, particularly if you've come from one part or an area where you work mostly by yourself. But now you're going to oversee a smaller group or a group of people. So, here's how I want things done. This is my way of whatever. And you don't allow yourself to get input or feedback from your group, then the wheels can begin to come off as well.
Yeah. Well, I think, if you go from subject matter expert to manager or leader, or you go from manager to leader, or you go from, to leading people who used to be your peers, you get promoted, suddenly your peers they're not required to follow you, but will they make the choice to follow you? And I think, if I may, this is the good news. These are coachable moments. If you're going from subject matter expert to manager or leader, if you're going from manager to leader, and especially if you're promoted to lead people who used to be your peers, this is where coaching can be so effective, because coaches, I believe, passionately do a lot for their clients, but we step in from the outside. We are not part of their story. We bring, I hope and I trust, objectivity. And that is that outside point of view looking in. There's one thing generally even the most effective leaders don't have, and that's objectivity about themselves. So you've got to seek that out through a peer group, through PRSA, if you're a member there, or IABC, if you're a member there, or, if I may, retaining an executive coach, because, stepping into leadership, I think especially today, is particularly challenging.
Mm-hmm. Well, Ken, we're sort of coming to a close here. I'm just wondering if you have any closing remarks for our listeners.
Well, can I tell them how they can get in touch with me? Would that be all right?
That's okay with me.
Okay, so I'm on LinkedIn. There are many Ken Jacobs on LinkedIn, but I believe I'm the only one that starts Ken Jacobs, PCP, and a few other initials. That stands for Professional Certified Coach. PCC. Did I say PC? Not PCP. I earned this certificate. I just re-upped my certification. Right. PCC, Professional Certified Coach. Connect with me on LinkedIn or through email, ken@jacobscomm.com. And our website is www.jacobscomm.com. And we've got a lot of leadership tools for you on the website. We have leadership ebooks. We have a LinkedIn newsletter. You can sign up for content so you can keep getting my insights for free, which is always nice, right? It's always nice.
Well, Ken, let me say thank you so very much for providing that insight to our listeners. And once again, you've been listening to Ken Jacobs. He's with Jacobs Consulting in Asbury Park, New Jersey. And also share this information, this particular session with your friends and colleagues. And be sure to listen to the Public Relations Review and share that with your friends and colleagues as well. Again, thank you for listening, and join us for the next edition of the Public Relations Review podcast. Have a good one. Bye.
Thank you for joining us on the Public Relations Review podcast. We invite you to share this episode with your friends and colleagues, and we greatly appreciate your reviews and feedback, which help us improve and grow. The Public Relations Review podcast is produced by Peter Woolfolk in the Washington, D.C. suburb of Silver Spring, Maryland. Thank you for listening, and please share this podcast with your colleagues.
Hello, this is Peter Woolfolk. First, let me say thank you so much for being a listener. Now, I want to alert you to our shiny new podcast website located at podpage.com. However, you can go directly to the podcast site located at publicrelationsreviewpodcast.com. There, you can contact me through email. You can leave a voice message. You can leave a review. You can read an episode blog and frequently learn about the podcast guests. You might also want to suggest podcast topic ideas or even suggest a guest. You can also let me know if you would like to receive our podcast listener logo that you can post on your social media. So I look forward to hearing from you about our new podcast website. Thank you so much for listening to the Public Relations Review podcast, and have a great day.